All right, welcome to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardin Ellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And we also have a very special guest with us today, none other than the original gangsta, Tom from Nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello. I guess wouldn't original Yangston perhaps be a little bit more,
the
more
original
apropos?
gangsta. Actually,
There
what's
you
interesting is I just asked him before we started recording, when did you start your channel? And when did you start? Do you remember the exact date by chance?
It was in March, but I don't know what date we did what date I published the first one. It must have been early March. I was talking to Daniel from American Jobs Factory, and he was saying that I may have beat him by like a few days.
Okay.
But let's see, here it is. It was. I'll come back to you on that one.
Okay. It's all good because I was just thinking that ours was a New Year's resolution to start the show and the channel. It took a month to build the studio, and we were supposed to have done it by February, but then it took another month. And so I think ours was in March as well. So what's interesting is you, us, and Daniel are like triplet channels. Birthed all at the same time, like literally within the same week.
Oh yeah,
it seems. You know what I'm saying?
The hive mind, and we all are very far apart from each other on the globe.
Exactly.
And we all had that moment of inspiration. So March 10th was when I published my 3 reasons why I'm supporting Andrew Yang.
Oh wow! Okay.
And
March
it's
10th.
not like the best produced video, but
hey, well, you're getting shout outs on The View, man. We're not getting shout outs on The View. Like, I worked my A off for this freaking set here.
Actually, I got a question about that because I remember pointing this out, and we were actually enlightened in the comments where we were perhaps incorrect on it. But I thought it was funny. They kept talking about Andrew Yang, and then like there's this great channel out there called Nerds for Young. And we thought that, and now that's the correct pronunciation we found out. But do you think for a second, like, well, hey, like, why you gotta say my name wrong like that, right? And the channel is Nerds for Yang, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know. You thought anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was just happy that they even pronounced some of the name of the channel correctly. And you know, it was funny when I made the channel. My brother was like, "Oh, why are you calling it Nerds for Yang? Like, that sounds so dismissive or whatever." And I was like, "Dude, it's unique, and we're trying to like reappropriate this term where like being smart and detail oriented and kind of thoughtful and nuanced is like a good thing, a cool thing." And he was like, "Blah blah blah." But I think that's part of the reason why The View mentioned it, because it has kind of this not edgy, but it's kind of like a self-deprecating name to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, rock on.
No, I hear it. Yeah.
Well, dude, I mean, it's working. And okay, so this was so wild and cool. Okay, so you're there in Switzerland, right?
Yes.
So okay, so this is nuts. So you're in Switzerland. How does but you're American, right? You're an expat, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was born in New Jersey. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're born in New Jersey. Okay. So how does a Swiss resident born in New Jersey dude get totally into Andrew Yang? Like, what turned you onto this enough that you would just completely dedicate a channel and some pretty superfluous content? Like, you're throwing a lot of content out there enough where you're like, man, like 30% of this brother's CPU is like going to this thing right here. You know what I'm saying? He's dedicated some serious bandwidth to this monster. All right.
Yeah.
Like, what got you into Yang, man?
Well, I've always been a political junkie. So every campaign, I'm pretty leaned in, at least into tracking what's going on. And then with the '08 campaign, I volunteered quite a bit and was like a caucus representative or whatever for Obama. And so I was kind of looking for my candidate this time.
Uh-huh.
And I had picked one out, Al Franken, and he, you know,
okay.
He's no longer.
Better luck next year. Better luck next year. Right?
Better luck next year.
I think Franken's got one good run in him coming up.
I was really disappointed when he sort of left the scene, let's say.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, well, who am I going to go with? And I was like, well, you know, Biden, he's attractive to the extent that
He's
if
attractive.
you were part of the Obama coalition, you want, he's like kind of like in the home team.
Yeah, he's a familiar face.
But he was never like an athlete before. He was never like a top tier candidate before. So I was like, oh, I don't know if this guy. And Bernie, I actually supported Bernie last time around before, he didn't get nominated. But then I thought, wow, Bernie's no spring chicken either. And this is a hard job, this is a hard freaking job. And so then I'm like, all right, well, who else is there? And oddly enough, one of the things that I've been really passionate about before hearing about Yang was the plight of the working class American in a world of technology and international free trade. And then somehow I was on YouTube, and boom, a little clip from Rogan comes up. And you know how it goes, man. Once you start, you can't get off of that shit.
Yeah.
The funniest thing too is that it's like everyone says, not everyone, but so many people. Also the same thing. I remember I was just kind of like, I'll be doing laundry or whatever, and I pull up my iPhone and I'm like, Joe Rogan talking with some guy running for president about whatever. What that sounds interesting, right? And then I think for me the big thing was I heard him talk about the what was it? I believe the catch-all term is human-centered capitalism. But yeah, it's just fascinating how so many people, you hear like that one little thing in that couple-hour podcast, and all of a sudden you're like, hey.
Dude, Joe Rogan's done more than Zach,
stuff.
man. Joe Rogan's done more than Zach Grumman to get Andrew Yang out there.
Yeah.
Jeez, man. He's got to bring him onto the campaign staff now.
Who got him on Rogan, right? That's the big question. Who knows? Maybe he got him on Rogan. Maybe he was the guy who made the calls. I actually don't know that
true.
story.
That's true. That's funny.
They
That's
should
funny.
build a statue to Joe Rogan outside the Oval Office.
Oh, dude, that's funny.
Or have a little bronze one in the Oval where he's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Because that guy, and that's just amazing how it wasn't 60 Minutes or Dateline or 2020 or Meet the Press or Rachel Maddow. It was some guy who used to do Fear Factor.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got some questions, Cody. Do you got something you want to rattle off really fast?
Please go. Please.
Okay. So
So
you're a very data-driven person. You're kind of a techie guy, kind of. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you're about as techie as it gets. Anyway, this has been a common frustration of mine. Okay, so we're constantly talking about like polling data, and polling data is what determines if you can make it on debate stages, and so on, and it forms so many opinions about even what we talk about, what channels dedicate media time to, so on and so forth. But I just have this suspicion, this left brain intuitive feeling, okay, that is purely anecdotal, that the methodologies are bad. Okay, and the proof of that is 2016. For months and months and months and months, we were getting poll after poll after poll from reputable and statistically significant polling organization saying, oh, you know what? She's going to win in this landslide, or she's going to win by 8% or whatever. Okay. In fact, I had actually just canceled cable, but hadn't set up my Roku yet. So I was forced to watch broadcast channels that night. So I remember watching the CBS channel, and it was hilarious. That was my Super Bowl. The night Donald Trump won in 2016, I absolutely loved it. Nothing to do with politics, all to do with the media, because they've ran the conversation for so long that it was the first time where they lost power, and they couldn't hide it on their faces. I remember there was a moment where the lead anchor, just in his anger, took his glasses off, slammed them on the countertop, and literally looked at his co-anchor and said, well, this just doesn't make sense, Janet. We haven't seen a single poll where he's been up ahead by more than the margin of error. How is this possible? And their absolute bias was revealed, but also the incompetence of these polling organizations, and they're, in my mind, what I perceive as just bad methodologies. Whether it's using landlines when the world has shifted to cell phones and we've all put in all of our landlines on this do not call list, or whatever. I don't know what the methodology is that's bad, but I notice I know we're kind of on the inside here and we're talking disproportionately with Andrew Yang fans and so on and so forth. So we're going to have a confirmation bias based upon our echo chambers that Yang's doing well. But even when I go out and I'm talking with my apolitical customers for my company, or else I'm meeting clients, or I'm, just in some dad group in the park with our kids or whatever, whenever I talk about my channel and say, oh, hey, I'm bringing up Andrew Yang, I meet a disproportionately large amount of people who are like, oh, I've actually started researching him, or else, oh yeah, I've been looking into him and I support him. And from my personal polls here, I'm like, no, he's got a lot more support than these polls are giving him. And I've already lost faith in them because of 2016. You know what I'm saying? Do you think their methodologies are good? If they're not, do you think they're bad? Like, when you start diving into these numbers, do you think they're demonstrative of his success? And if yes, why? If no, why? And then what the gap is between reality and fiction?
I think polls have always been estimations of actual support. They acknowledge that there is a range of values that are plus or minus whatever they're saying. And they're also a snapshot in time. And so it's very possible that those polls that we were following in the original 16 election were fairly accurate, and people changed their mind because the world and events were kind of unfolding, and people were kind of still undecided. And I think with Trump, there may have also been something, and might be going on today, where not a lot of Trump supporters are kind of not willing to state that they are Trump supporters to
you lose your job.
Yeah. So to answer your question, like I agree that they are not they're not as precise as we'd want them to be, but I think they're like the best option we have. I mean, because you probably, I think you live on the coast, right? So
we're in Los Angeles. Yeah, we're in LA.
Yeah. So I would imagine if you went to other parts of the country and you went to a dad's group, they may not have heard of Yang, depending on what region you're in. So ultimately, I think the polls are directional, and I think the story they're telling is accurate, which is that Yang is growing steadily over time, that Biden is kind of flat or maybe going down. Warren is definitely gathering momentum, and everybody else is kind of just flat. So it's really just Warren and Yang, in my opinion. Now, whether Yang is 8% or 4% or 6%, that's, I wouldn't hang my hat on that precision. But I like the trends that we're seeing.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you got a little bit more faith in it, huh? I'm just this angry skeptic.
With Emerson, like I think close to half of their 1,000 respondents were online. They weren't just landline people. And
it was 40% were part of an online poll. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you and I don't use landlines. There are parts of the country where landlines are very prominent, and they vote. So they may not be reachable online.
One of these places, we will perform missionary work on behalf of broadband.
Missionary work to bring internet.
You know what I'm saying? We will preach the gospel of digital communication.
I know.
We will evangelize these people. That's funny.
Behold the internet.
Behold broadband connection, 1080p downloads. You know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you something. Like, I have members of my family in older generation who
probably still look your same age.
That's right. I get mistaken for them all the time. And they but they have landlines, and they have Fox News on constantly.
Really?
And
blessed people. No.
Yes, right? They are. I think their hearts are in the right place.
That's funny.
And I was just watching with my wife Hannity just for just to see what like the other side kind of consumes.
Oof, that's a rough start for the other side, Hannity. Ooh, even he's too much for me sometimes, man.
I mean, it was nuts, man. Like he's talking about this impeachment like it's treasonous. It's treasonous of the Democrats, you know. It's and I used to watch Hannity when I was a Republican back in the day when he had Combs on as well, and
but then he got too liberal, and he Combs off the show.
He used to preach about right and wrong and the rule of law, but you know, obviously, maybe it depends on who's in the Oval.
Yeah, always, man. That's why I always joke, and I like this is the like if you believe or if you don't believe in confirmation bias, you live in like the wrong era, man. I always tell people,
I totally
tell me what you believe in, give me 5 minutes, I'll prove you're right. Just tell me what you believe in. And whatever it is, I'll pull up a video, an article. Right. I'll get a speech. I'll get like a 2-hour speech from an academic. Like, dude, look, you're right.
No, I totally believe in confirmation bias. But you know, unfortunately, I probably stand a whole lot closer to Sean Hannity on this, in the sense that like I'm just sick and tired of this orange man bad thing going on. And Cody, you said it really well in the beginning of this show that when you come out and you just tell me that you absolutely hate somebody, I stop believing things you say, because one of the easiest ways to smear or get rid of somebody you hate is just to lie about them. And at this point, and by the way, I'm even-handed about this. Hillary Clinton was dragged in front of a bunch of Republicans for her infamous email scandal with the servers. And after 11 hours of grilling that woman, straight up 11 hours with maybe one bathroom break, they couldn't find a smoking gun. And so at that point, I didn't want to hear any more about it. If I tuned into Fox News, I didn't want to hear them even mention it, because I'm like, look, you guys had your shot. You had your shot and you couldn't find the smoking gun, so shut up about the emails, right? To a certain extent, I think, you know what? You guys had your shot with Trump. You had your shot with this whole Russiagate thing. We $23 million investigated it. So now, like, shut up and move on, and either win an election or deal with the fact you got a president you don't like.
That's one of the reasons why I enjoy following Yank so much, because he understands, as someone running for president, ultimately I have to win an election here. So regardless of who I'm running against, I have to win. And
so before I get an ulcer, you ask your questions, Cody.
Exactly. Well, no, but like, seriously, I think it's one of the things, and I think actually it's a really interesting part of this discussion right here, as you were saying before. It kind of doesn't. There was like this point a couple months ago when people all over the world with all different weird perspectives on everything all of a sudden were like, you know what, Andrew Yang, we like this guy. But I all the time tell people this. They ask me, what's your favorite policy? And of course I could say one of the top ones, but I try to think of a fun one. And he has a policy, I don't know if you're familiar with this, where essentially he would take airlines to task if they kick people off planes for overbooking. He would have a government organization track how often it happened. If your airline did it too much, you could expect some fines, and people were entitled to a raffle system. So that's my favorite. I'm just wondering personally, what's your favorite, you know, not necessarily, you know, big 3, big 4 policies from a Mr. Yang?
Well, first of all, I would have to say, Cody, I'm a little bit uncomfortable when the government gets too involved with the private sector and competition among firms. This might be the former Republican in me coming out.
I hear that pushback as well. I'm just saying, there is sometimes where I'm like, you know what? But like, if airlines want to screw people
where do you draw the line? Like, is the government going to fine a restaurant for like forgetting my reservation? Like, I don't know. So, but I get where you're going. I mean, I do think airlines have done a pretty bad job, and something should improve. My favorite policy is probably the kind of human-centered capitalism scorecard. And the reason is every complex organization that has had success usually has metrics that they measure themselves against and that they use to prioritize. And we as a country, you know, I don't need to preach to you guys, like, you know, it's unemployment, it's GDP, maybe it's presidential approval rating, but you would never, you'd never run a company that way. You would say, all right, well, as a company, like, what are the core elements of our strategy? What are the best indicators of if we're succeeding or not? And so that's a very simple one. It's actually way cheaper than UBI.
Way cheaper, right? Way cheaper.
But imagine if forget the State of the Union, there's just a quarterly report, which is like an earnings call. Which is like, here's how we're doing. And I would love to see that. And I would love to see Congress and the executive branch held accountable for those results.
Oh yeah, that would be. But you know what? You just used the wrong word there, man. Talking about accountability in Washington, D.C.
I know.
That is their least favorite thing. They can be like, oh, yeah, we'll do it. Okay, cool. All you have to do is we just got to make sure we hold you guys accountable. There's a lot of reasons why we can't do this thing anymore. Now you mentioned that. But like I said, with the Joe Rogan podcast, that's exactly what won me over as well, was him talking about that stuff and kind of saying, like, yeah, like it's probably important we monitor, like, life expectancy, just overall health and wellness of people.
Quality of the air, education.
Are my citizens killing each other and killing themselves with drugs? I don't know. Maybe that's a problem as a leader
Are
of a
my
country.
citizens? Yeah, I like that. Very monarchical. That was awesome.
Hey, you know me. I feel like when you're the president, man, these are your people. You gotta take care of your people.
Hey, so I got a question for you. Okay, so you kind of used to be Republican. Interesting. That's cool. And then you just kind of had the shift, and now you're a total Yang guy. I was actually talking with Scott Santens about this, how I've actually found convincing people, because I was interested in Andrew Yang first because of universal basic income. Okay, and I'd actually heard about it and studied into it a little bit before Andrew Yang. And I admit, like many, my initial reaction was like, crap, it would require way too much central planning, and just kind of did that socialist dismissive thing that many Republicans or conservatives do, right? Until I dove deeper into it. And I've actually found, we joked about evangelization before, but I actually found it's easier to convince Republicans to look into Andrew Yang, Google Andrew Yang, and be interested in introducing UBI into our society than it has even Democrats, which you would think, self-titling themselves as more progressive or more interested in the poor or whatever, they would be much earlier adopters. And I even talked to Scott Santens about this, and he said, oh, yeah, totally. He says there's just some people that just want the revolution. They want the revolution over the solution. You know what I'm saying? And since Bernie Sanders didn't say it, they don't want anything to do with it. Since Elizabeth Warren didn't say it, they don't want anything to do with it. And so I'm curious, have you found a similar experience? Like when you're trying to talk to people, because at the end of the day, we're all talking with people that have never heard of this guy first. You know what I'm saying? Or have even heard of universal basic income first. Like very few people are in the know about both of these topics. So you and I are probably having a similar experience, even though we're on opposite ends of the globe, of being an introductory experience to UBI and Andrew Yang. What's your general experience in that? What are people's reservations? And also, have you noticed that some people are easier to convince than others? Now, granted, mine might be a bias just because maybe I know how to talk the lingo of conservatives more. You know what I'm saying? So that might assuage them or convert them to the idea per se. But have you noticed a similar experience? If so, how?
Yeah, and the data bears that out too. If you go into the crosstab data for the Emerson poll, you'll find that Yang is number one in disgruntled Republicans supporting him.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Like no other Democratic candidate has nearly as many. He's also number two for moderates. So I think what you're seeing is consistent with what the polls are showing. Now, in terms of why, that's an interesting one. I think as a former Republican, many people are a little bit suspicious of large government programs that are administered by the federal government with like very thick regulations and rules and agencies kind of doing it. And so I think a lot of us are suspicious of the efficiency of that sort of entity. And the UBI is a very elegant approach, which is like, let's not create a federal jobs program. Let's distribute value to the individuals, and then they can be the best judge of what will deliver them the most value. So I think a lot of Republicans, that appeals to them, this notion that we don't need like the Department of Universal Basic Income and like thousands of federal bureaucrats. Now, as for why many progressive Democrats are so sour on it, I mean, I do think it challenges a lot of progressive federal Democratic kind of beliefs. Like the fact that Bernie wants a universal, like a federal jobs program, like where he's going to pay people to build, bridges and tunnels and all that kind of thing is classic. I mean, that's a classic, Democratic belief. And, this is UBI almost comes out of like, economists who, like Milton Friedman, like those types of thinkers.
Yeah.
And so it kind of crosses party
people
lines
whose
a little
ideas
bit.
worked,
And,
It's always nice to quote people whose ideas worked. That's always
Well,
generally where I go from. Before I quote Karl Marx, I'll quote Milton Friedman. That's just me.
Well.
But anyway, keep going.
No, Friedman's no dummy. I mean, won Nobel Prize and everything. So I agree. But I have had conversations with hardcore Democrats, and there's a little bit of kind of dismissive elitism in it, which is, well, if you give money to the people, like they're not going to use it for the right things. And to me, as a part libertarian,
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa. Why do you need to tell them what to do? Like,
why don't we
why
take
do
the
they have
money
to go
then?
to your freaking job training program?
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck do you know what jobs are going to be available 10 years from now?
No, exactly, man.
Dude, we just wrecked another podcast where one of the people typed in and said, well, do you really think you should be giving all these people all this money? Like, how do you know what they're going to do with it? Like, and I was just like, that sounds a lot like a bunch of racist people in 1960 saying, what are we going to do?
Like, just like pretentious people. But like, I always say,
just
like,
like-
isn't the next logical step then? Like, cool, these people shouldn't have money then. We'll take little money they have
Yeah,
and then we'll give them vouchers. Like, it's such a weird response, but I find the same pushback. I'll bring up UBI. And it's funny. Some people will say, so billionaires get it? And then some people will say, so drug addicts get it? I'm like, everyone gets it. It's the whole point of universal, man. There's no like cap on who does and who doesn't. So that is kind of funny. But yeah, there is this pushback. Also, one thing we noticed too is you look at kind of something closer to a federal jobs guarantee or something similar. One of the things I love about the UBI is how it works so particularly well in a capitalist system. You know what I mean? In a less capitalistic system where there wasn't the sense of you can kind of use your money to make money, and then a country like America where you have so much, upward mobility, a lot of other countries, they can say, here's your pittance, do whatever you want with it, and it doesn't matter. The cool thing about America with our capitalist system is basically it's kind of like, here's your money. You have a chance now every single month to get back in the game. And I think it's funny when I talk to people that are just not as on board with socialism or on board with capitalism, they're more socialist leaning. And I start talking about why I like UBI. They'll be like, well, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean about starting businesses and like selling? What do you mean about that stuff? What do you mean businesses could have sales at certain points of the month to target people who just got UBI checks to increase their revenue? Like, what? That sounds like capitalism stuff. I'm like, well, yeah, like we live in a capitalist country. I don't know what you're talking about. So I think that's another kind of funny pushback I see. A lot of people just kind of say like, well, but that's not socialism. I'm like, well, I know it isn't socialism. And then some people from a certain perspective will say, that sounds like socialism. I'm like, well, no, it's not. I don't know. So I think it's funny how you get the people that are mad that it isn't actually socialism and the people that are mad because it sounds too much like socialism. And it's kind of one of the cute things we've seen with this.
The brilliance of Yang, in my opinion, is combining VAT and UBI. Because if you try and propose one of them on its own, if you just go UBI, then you're like, oh, how are we going to pay for it? You're just going to tax the rich. If you just do VAT, people are going to be like, "Oh, that's regressive. It's unfair to the poor." But when you can do them both, it is like oxygen and fire. Like they go well together.
Exactly.
And I don't think anybody really kind of had that combination proposal in the past, or not. At least Yang has really brought that to the forefront.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So now I'm really curious. Is there? Okay. So obviously you're a Yang fan. I mean, the channel's called Nerds for Yang. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're one of the people out there pumping Yang, which is awesome. Is there anything you disagree with him on? I mean, because for heaven's sakes, he posted 120 some odd policies. There's got to be things in there where you're just like, oh, no way. You know what I'm saying? Have you come across something where you're just like, no, like this isn't even just like off by a little bit, where I'm just like, heck no. Have you come across anything that you disagree with the guy on?
Oh, yeah. I still am not convinced that 16-year-olds have the judgment to vote. And it's a little disturbing that their vote counts the same as mine. Because when I was 16... I'm liking you
more and more, brother. I'm liking you more and more.
When I was 16, I was focused on other things. So... that's a concern. I think the second one, and this might come across controversial for such a sort of advocate of Yang. I do worry a little bit about balancing the budget.
Oh, yeah.
And, the UBI, yes, a good chunk of it will be funded by the VAT, but some of it is a bet on growth, and some of it is a bet on future savings. You never know if those things happen. And so part of me would prefer a more sort of gradual rollout.
Okay. Like everybody gets $1 a month to start out, and we'll just make sure the system works, right?
I don't know, like something $1,000. I mean, like 12,000 a year it's a material outlay for every adult citizen.
Well, also the one thing that I don't think ever, to be frank, I've never really heard it openly discussed, and I've only seen it a couple times. But he does mention that part of the UBI will come from military spending. We don't always get to predict what our military spending will be in 7 years because based on what other countries do and kind of put us in positions to do or not do. So that's the other kind of angle too, where I always wonder, I'm like, we could cut a few % off the military spending and really have a lot of money to go into the economy, but then we don't know if something crazy happens and suddenly that spending has to go up or is forced to go up, or who knows what happens, and it goes up again. So I think it's kind of interesting. But that's actually fascinating. I've heard that brought up a rollout plan, which makes a lot more sense, I think, actually. You know what the problem is? That's way too reasonable to run. Even for Andrew Yang, that's too reasonable of a platform to run for candidacy on. It's like, well, no, guys, we have to make sure it works over a period of time. And then once we've proven it works and we can pay for it, then we can add to it and stuff. People are like, yeah, but I want it all now. What do you mean we're going to wait 8 years to roll it out?
Cody, I believe they call that the Freedom Dividend Beta.
There we go. Exactly.
Freedom Dividend Beta.
We're gonna start with some early beta. If you get your codes, you can get your beta code in. We're gonna give beta codes to influencers around the country. They can explain how awesome it is, and then then we'll roll it out over time. There we go. And then you could do like a lot of these video games do now, where you start selling them, and then 8 years later you say it's done. We've released it. You can do the same thing with Freedom Dividend, where it's early access. There we go. It's an early access program. And then at a certain period of time, we'll say it's finally version 1.0, and you can finally get your full $1,000. Anyway, at the end here, though, if you have some time for it, I wanted to do some fun kind of less Yang and political related questions. First off, I have to admit, I did not do my research on this one, but Andrew Yang, of course, is a fan of basically all New York sports teams, and he picks one. I was wondering, do you have any teams you support, and would you happen to, are you a sports fan at all? That's the first question.
Yeah, Seahawks.
Oh, cool. Oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My next question was, so what do you think about the Jets then?
Oh,
because that's Yang's team.
I don't really think about that.
But now you're following it.
Why would anybody think about the Jets?
But because this is what I want to wonder now. What if Yang's in the White House, right? And he's got to deal with the Jets being the Jets for 8 years. You know what I mean? Or Sunday's going to be bad days, or Monday's going to be bad days for the White House?
No, I don't have a problem with that because Andrew and I are aligned on one thing when it comes to the NFL is that I think both of us find the Patriots insufferable. And I think most of America does too.
Oh yeah, that was a campaign-winning tweet right there when he said, "I'm sick of the Patriots." That's how you steal some voters from around the New England area. You're gonna lose some in New England, but I think he was actually in New Hampshire at the time, wasn't he? When he sent that tweet out, he was like right up there in the Northeast, but. That's
I think that's a classic like anti-politician move. Like with the New Hampshire primary coming up, like you're gonna poop on the Pats. Like only someone like you would never see Warren or Biden doing anything close to that.
Yeah, or you could say only a Jets fan, right? Only a Jets fan would do something like that.
Yeah, they're just so pissed,
so obsessed. The Patriots have been beating us for 20 years. So I guess there's not going to be. So you don't think if Andrew Yang is in the White House, there's any risk over the 4 to 8 years he's in there that the New York Jets will go to the White House to meet Andrew Yang?
They're not. I mean, not because they won anything. No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not for one. But that's the other interesting question I wanted to ask. So we have seen, obviously, over the last 3 or 4 years, nobody wants to go to the White House. To actually win for baseball, basketball, football.
Well, because you lose your job.
Well, no, but my large question is
the new McCarthyism.
What do you think Andrew Yang would do to kind of start welcoming these people back who maybe because there's going to be entire sports who for 4 years, because if Yang's in the White House, just straight up didn't go to the White House. So what do you think Yang will do to welcome him back? You think he'll do anything fun? He'll do anything unique to kind of make him feel more welcome?
I don't think he needs to do anything other than not dividing the country and sort of like labeling people, rapists and murderers and stuff like that.
Probably helps.
And so I think most people want to go to the White House. I think the reason why they haven't gone to the Trump White House is because they don't want to associate with his vibe and his rallies. I mean, they're pretty like fierce kind of Just
Have you ever
kind
been
of
to one?
negative.
You ever been to one?
No, but I watched them. I watched them
Oh
on
yeah, but
C-SPAN.
then you're just seeing it through the media scope,
Okay, well,
man.
Trump
I don't know.
rallies
It's
aside.
a camera. It's
then
a
you're
camera
just-
pointing at
Yeah,
him.
and they're not showing the nice, reasonable, nice people that are just like, I really appreciate that Donald Trump got rid of the Johnson Amendment and that we have also experienced an increase in our 401ks. You're not seeing those people. You're seeing the toothless idiots. It's like, yeah, man. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not indexing on their one-on-one interviews because maybe you're right. Maybe they're picking out like the most angry people. I'm just watching the whole crowd chant, send her back, lock her up, and
But come
build
on.
that wall.
Democrat rallies do the exact
Well,
same
hold on.
thing.
I had like a whole bunch of questions that weren't about why Democrats or Republicans are bad. I was trying to get to.
I
but-
think all of these rallies
I
have
get-
atrophied into
What?
freaking like soccer, 1950s, Spain.
I just want to talk about
What would be the equivalent of send her back that Yang rally has had?
never. That's why I like Andrew Yang.
Well,
man.
no, not Yang rallies. Yeah,
Even though I think Andrew Yang needs to embrace the wrestling promo a little bit more when he gets on stage. I think Donald Trump went off the deep end wrestling promo. I think Andrew Yang needs to be kind of more moderate wrestling promo, or he's still like, I don't know if you remember when he just, I don't know if he had a, I don't know if you remember he's a Jets fan or something, but he goes up to a podium and he just starts laying into Donald Trump, man. You remember backstage, like, what's he better than me at? He's fat. He's like, it was like a Scott Steiner promo. Like, what's he gonna be good at? Weighing me down because he's so heavy. Like, I could beat him at anything. And I'm like, I've never seen Andrew Yang act like that. I was wondering, did you happen to see that clip? And that's one of the funny things where Andrew Yang every now and then will go a little bit to like, he'll go like full on like a in your face promo right there. I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, generally speaking, we don't see.
No, I think Andrew Yang needs to get on the an episode of the WWE. That's what I think.
I don't think any
I
candidate
I
has
think
been
he
on.
needs to go there, and he needs to do the Austin 316 Stone Cold Stunner.
No, you have to be careful. That's
You know.
that's the death wish. If you're in the ring when Austin's doing the beer celebration, you're getting stunnered. You'll be there celebrating with him, and he'll give you the kick to the chest. Hey, you know what though? If Yang took a stunner on on Monday Night Raw for
gotta tell ya.
America,
Yeah.
The risk is then he gets further marginalized
No,
as
yeah.
like a joke candidate, though.
well, Donald Trump got
So
took a
that's why
stunner.
he needs to be doing the stunner.
Yeah.
You're only marginalized if you get the stunner. If you do the stunner, then you're the freaking
No, but
hero,
I guess
man.
you know what?
Okay, all right,
I was
maybe.
I was trying to get away from this, but this actually is being just something I think is kind of interesting because something I've talked about, and I got some pushback when I brought it up, but I did say that I think for a candidate like Andrew Yang who doesn't have the political experience, sometimes he does have to kind of watch out for appearing like he's having a little bit too much fun out there, where it's like, because it happened as soon as I thought after the third debate, all the think pieces came in. This guy isn't taking the campaign serious. Oh, does Andrew Yang really want to be president and all that nonsense? But I'm wondering, do you think he needs to start doing 60 Minutes and like, because we see him do like Maddow and he did Tucker Carlson a month ago, but does he have to go? I joke on Card. Does he have to go like full boomer and do like? I mean, what is like the
Yes.
most like? What is the landline TV show? You know what I mean? Like if you have a landline and like 3 channels, you have to go on Price is Right and spin the wheel on a Jeopardy. What do you think is like the thing? Because people online talk about The View, but even The View, it's not like the youngest audience, but you know what I mean? It's a little bit more of kind of like just the big daytime TV
I think
stuff.
60 Minutes would be great.
Okay, 60 minutes.
I started a petition a while back on change.org to try and get 60 Minutes to put him on. I think he would crush it.
Oh yeah.
I think when you look at the other candidates, you could imagine like Biden falling all over himself and tripping all over his words. You could imagine Warren being kind of exposed as a massive government person who, but also can't acknowledge like when she's going to raise taxes, things like that. And so I think Yang would perform amazingly. And I think it's kind of BS that 60 Minutes hasn't had him on, because he is a historic candidate who's breaking all the molds. And it's kind of part of, I think, the media's implicit bias against him.
No, yeah, I hear it because that is really a fascinating campaign to see where he started and where he is now. And to
Yeah,
see
well,
what
he
they
hasn't
talk
passed
about.
their test of virtue yet. He passed Rachel Maddow's test of virtue last week.
He showed Nancy Pelosi
Yeah.
that he's with the party. That's what it is. And Nancy, I'm with the party. If you want me, like I said, man, you act like you wish he was running
Okay.
as a Republican. He's running as a Democrat.
No,
man.
but
They
I'm
gotta
telling
like
you,
him.
I literally think there are so many disaffected, reasonable. I think on both sides there's an exhausted majority. of disaffected, reasonable moderates who are just like, enough of this anti-Trump insanity already. Enough of this. Don't answer
better
if you're going to
question for
raise
both you guys.
taxes.
Yeah, better question for both you guys while I wrap up here.
Yeah.
I said I want to get into the fun stuff, but this could be fun from a matter of looking. So I heard on Twitter and just reading the tea leaves. I know you look at the betting odds, Tom. So
yeah.
Hillary Clinton's booked for like all the morning shows coming up in the next few days. And I saw a tweet from just one tweet, but somebody said they had one of their call-in polls and they left off several main candidates and at the very end asked for favorability of Hillary Clinton. So if we get Hillary Clinton 2 Electric Boogaloo or Trump Clinton 2, what happens then? What are you doing then? What happens to the Nerds for Yang if for some reason Hillary comes back in, rolls it in? What's the plan? I wonder for both you guys, and also what's the plan for us?
She's the crypt keeper. She keeps coming back, bro. She keeps coming back to make an appearance, dude. Think it'll happen?
I do not think it will happen. I think it would be devastating for the Democratic Party.
Oh, big time.
I think that I would still hold my nose and support her because I think that Trump has done a terrible job, and I don't feel like he's got the capability for a second term. But it would just be a suicidal act by the Democratic Party. I mean, they're already, in my opinion, shooting themselves in the foot with this whole like 12 candidates on one stage thing. It's like, or do you really? It's like when they want to promote an internal candidate at a company, and they're like, well, we have to post this to look at external candidates, so they put it like in page 10 of the local paper, and they don't want anyone to apply.
Oh yeah.
And I think Tom Perez and the DNC do not want Andrew Yang messing things up for them. They don't know him. He's not beholden to them the way Warren and Bernie. He hasn't paid his dues the way that Biden has. You know, it's his turn. Yada yada. But I think if the DNC does something like that, they will have a very hard convention, and a lot of people are going to say the system was rigged, and a lot of people are not going to turn out, and maybe they'll give $20 when they would have given 100 if it were perceived, even with the same nominee, even if Biden got the nomination, but it was perceived as an open, fair process. I think people would rally behind it. If we feel like the DNC is a part of the Yang media blackout, that's not going to go well. As the Tulsi people, the Booker people, like, it's not just Yang. I mean, it's so clear that they are putting their thumb on the scale. And at what cost? Like, come on. Another night would not have been, some massive investment. They've done 2-night debates before.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very disturbing.
Well, I did a little bit of digging, a little bit of research, and what I found from when ABC tried to do it was that, who was very happy it's going to be on one night? Leading staff, at least one leading campaign's aide is going to be very happy. They were raising hell with the DNC when they had the audacity of suggesting 2 for this last debate, and the producers will be very happy. So,
yeah.
No, I haven't spoken to one person who wants to watch the debate that's happy it's going to be on one night, but apparently TV producers and leading campaigns will love it, man. They are all about it. So I think, like you said, we're seeing just people again feeling like the media is just like the media and DNC are working to say,
if you're Biden, this is a dream come true.
Oh yeah,
that's exactly.
You don't want any more time. He's like the guy in class that does not want to get called on.
Oh, of course, yeah.
He's got the GPA. He's going to graduate with honors. He doesn't want any risks. Well, and the problem is that in the general election, he's going to have 60 minutes of talk time. Yeah. And we need to see how he holds up to real challenges, to real questions. And based on the last performance, I mean, he only had 15 minutes and his wheels were coming off the bus.
Oh, yeah. And then he also has the weird kind of double-edged sword part where if he goes up there and if he doesn't play it quite well enough, it's going to be, dude, this old guy can't even hang for a 3-hour debate. Look at him. He's just standing over there falling asleep. And he's like, because the first debate I saw him like, well, at least he's answering questions. Then he kept going and he had a couple of really long rambling answers that were like, whoa, what is he talking about? But I don't know what to do with the guy. I keep saying I just, in my mind, I cannot in any future see Joe Biden being in this primary before it ends. I think he'll just drop out. Something weird will happen. Dude's had like 9 life-saving surgeries. Like, dude, just live your life in peace, please. Do you want to be president now? Like, I don't know. I feel like I just can't see a future where he does, which then leaves us to Mrs. Warren, who's my favorite. Did you see the latest video that came out with Elizabeth Warren? It's an old one, oldie and a goodie, where someone's asking her, and My grandma walks by my papa's picture and says, look at his cheekbones. They are like a Cherokee's cheekbones. Like, that was her defense for why she actually is Native American. I mean, a lot of this stuff might be silly. It's all going to come back if she wins a primary. In general election, it's going to be tough when people bring up Elizabeth Warren's plagiarized recipe in the Pow Wow Chow cookbook. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be tough for her to explain away all this stuff when she's been doing it for 15 years. I don't know, man.
Yeah, especially because it underscores common Republican narrative, which is that the Democrats are hypocritical.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, and that's actually what I fear, man, because I joke around and I lambast Democrats on this show a little bit beyond what my co-host Cody the Oracle feels comfortable with. But the truth is, deep down inside, I'm not trying to convince Democrats to become Republicans. I just want them to be better Democrats. I want there to be two healthy and robust options for the American people to choose from that are both rational, sane, and have their best interests at heart. You know what I'm saying? And so it actually pains me when I think of a Warren versus Trump debate where it all of a sudden is zero substance, all personality. And what personality is going to win? Trust me, when you lied about your heritage in order to get ahead politically, and you've got a dude who in the middle of a debate stage, when you say, well, his temperament's just not good. Yeah, because you'd be in jail. Like, I mean, he is going to silverback gorilla stomp this woman, you know what I'm saying, over and over with just inconsistent lie after inconsistent lie. And the second she tries to paint herself as progressive, he'll just say, oh yeah, tell that to the entire Cherokee Nation you lied about. You know, and that is a battle in which the people gain nothing. Okay, Donald Trump squashes what ends up being perceived as a joke candidate, and nothing good happens other than we rehash the 1960s capitalism versus socialism argument. That's it. And I'm tired of living in a boomer world where everything gets, dwindled down into what the argument was in the 1960s, because we're not living in an economy from the 1960s. We're not living in a technological economy of the 1960s, nor a social economy of the 1960s. Everything's changed.
It would be a race between the crazy uncle and the judgmental aunt.
Pretty much, yeah. And it would be, I mean, that would be, people say it'd be fun to watch Yang debate Trump. I don't know if it'd be fun to watch Trump debate Warren, but those would be some of the most, that would be some of the stuff where, like, I can imagine if someone's like, Australian. You're Switzerland, right? Some Swiss people. Oh, you're Americans. I'll check out the debate tonight. And be like, what? Is that it's like when we watch videos of, like, I think it's like, I forgot where, but there's countries where it's just kind of like the way it is. Like, it gets crazy in parliament. And they're like throwing chairs and like hitting people and stuff. Like, it's like when Americans watch that and go, wow, that's politics. People are going to watch our debates and be like, wow, that's politics. You just got a bunch of people on stage calling each other names, man. There's not even any talk there. Yeah. So that could be fun. You know what though, man? Like, what are we gonna do, right? All we're gonna do is get out and vote. You know, we're doing, people like us, right? We're doing what we can to make sure people know the word of Yang. Get Yang out there. Tell people that there's a candidate who isn't a crazy person who thinks that it's not a crazy narcissist who just believes it's my time to be president because I was senator for 12 years. You know, it's refreshing to see that. But man,
and neither is he a judgmental Harvard professor who has a troubled history of identity. Indicating her identity.
Yeah, just nonsense. Yeah. I mean, it's like she like accepted awards. It's like the first woman of color to do something. It's like, why are you accepting awards? Like, I get one thing, like just checking a box and being like, hey, but then at a certain point, it gets to, you know what happened? I don't think any of them predicted this progressive reform movement taking over the Democratic Party to the point where it's like, oh, all that stuff I used to just shamelessly do to get ahead is gonna make me look bad. But yeah, it's nice seeing, because Andrew Yang hasn't had to worry about that. We don't have to deal with it by him. But we have seen things come out like, I believe yours was a punk for Halloween. I don't know if you saw that picture.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Whenever
I think he actually posted it.
He did, yeah.
Wasn't he the one that put it up there?
Yeah. Here's that one. God, I wish I could bring it up right now. Here's this one hilarious picture. It's like him. I think it's like looks like high school, like a senior picture. Everyone's got their like fitting jackets. He's wearing this like massive, oversized plaid jacket, huge tie. I mean, I think it's funny. I mean, the only thing we've seen come out about the guy's past because he fired a woman and gave her 2 years severance, paid her every month for 2 years.
What a jerk boss.
I think that's the worst we've heard, right? That's as bad as it's got. He took a woman aside and said, "Hey, we don't need you anymore."
Those jobs.
Yeah,
I'm saying that's what I would like.
Yeah, exactly. Fire me, please, Andrew. So yeah, you know what's funny? Trump always fires people. You think Yang will do that in the White House? Like he fires someone, he's like, "But look, you're such a great guy. I want to pay you still. Like we'll find another role for you. So I don't have to fire you as head of the EPA. We'll just pay you every month for the remainder of my term, right?" So,
I think Trump kind of does that with some of his people.
He probably does. Well, he probably has to. They sign a contract, and he's like, just don't come back to work. It's like when they fire a football coach, Down here in Los Angeles, we signed Jeff Fisher to a 2-year deal, fired him. He got paid $8 million to not coach for 2 years.
Dude,
thank you, Jeff.
That is epic.
So, yeah. So, I guess we're going to get an end here. Super interesting talk, man. I always love watching you talking with you because you clearly are, like you said, former Republican, now Democrat, just someone who's been paying attention to this for quite some time, right? The elections and what's going on in politics. It's always fun. So last thing coming out, you are a Seahawks fan, and then you want to say to your boys, the Seahawks over there in Seattle.
Dude, I would say to my friends in Seattle that we always have a little slow start to the season. We always have a slow start to our games. Everything's under control. And that Russell Wilson is a magical quarterback. Pete Carroll is a magical leader. And the Seahawks are America's team because we are the team of underdogs.
Wow.
We are the team of people who were written off because Russell Wilson was too short to be a quarterback. Pete Carroll's not strict enough with his players. But the team comes together and we all make it happen when everybody says it can't. In fact, I would argue the Hawks are the team of the Yang Gang.
Wow.
For that reason.
Oh, okay. I have to push back on that. I would say that would have been a tremendous speech in 2000.
As hell ain't the Rams.
Well, there's other teams between the Rams and the Seahawks, okay? That was a great Seahawks speech for 2016. You guys went to back-to-back Super Bowls. What do you mean no one believes in you? No one thinks Russell Wilson can do it. He's like the highest paid quarterback in the sport.
No, but when he was drafted, he was overlooked. I think he was third or fourth round. Everybody
they brought
said,
in someone else to replace him. He was the backup quarterback to Green Bay. Green Bay backup. Aaron Rodgers got hurt. The guy that throws Matt Flynn, those 5 touchdowns in a game. Your boys Seahawks pay him all the money in the world. He rides the bench because Russell Wilson's too good. So cool. There we go. I'm glad to know you're a Seahawks fan because we're in the same division. That means.
So before we close, man, how can people follow you, find you, and communicate with you, brother?
Oh, they can just go to nerdsforyang.com. It'll point them to the YouTube channel, or they can follow me on Twitter at nerdsforyang.
Awesome, man.
All right, so we have been listening, participating, arguing, and commiserating with none other than Tom from Nerds for Yang. Got a shout out on the View, and he's also been a prolific YouTuber on behalf of one Andrew Yang and his quest for the presidency. So anyway, check him out, like and subscribe to his channel. You're going to get an overdose of info that might take 2 viewings in order to keep up in the cranium. You know what I'm saying?
There are a lot of charts.
Yeah, he got a lot of charts, very data-driven, but that's what's so awesome about it because I'm a data-driven guy as well. If you guys haven't liked this video yet, please make sure you like it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. If you want to get the hat, make sure you check out problemsolverpolitics.com. And if you want to contribute to the channel, there's going to be a PayPal link in the description, or you can hang out with us in the Twitch stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays. This is Problem Solver Politics. We will see you guys in the next video.